Hi, it's Ivy Slater, and welcome to today's Slater Success Live. I am so excited with today's interview. I am a huge fan of Renee VanHeel. So Renee VanHeel and I met through networking, and I will always say networking is one of my greatest assets and one of the greatest things I could do. Just so give you a little background on Renee before I introduce her to you, and you actually meet the amazing woman behind a couple of different organizations. Renee is a serial entrepreneur. She has owned her own business since the age of 12, people. That's a hell of a lot younger than me. As an integral part of her family's business since at 18 years old, she took the In the Red business to $3 million in sales within 6 years. For the past 7 years, she did a few other things in between. And in the past 7 years, she built a profitable personal health, corporate wellness, and coaching company. GCE Health, but saw a unique opportunity within the unethical industry of credit card processing. And yes, I have to say, credit card processing is kind of like known as a bit of like a shysterish business, for lack of a better word. But she saw the need of identifying ethical credit card processing services, and she wanted to be that person. She founded Pay It Forward Processing as a means to give back. Her net proceeds go to carefully vetted nonprofits nationwide through her foundation, Every Swipe Benefits Charity. Renee, thank you so much. Thank you for coming on today and really talking about and sharing more in depth about the business of credit card processing and how to take credit card processing to an ethical way that now gives back on a regular basis. So hats off to you and thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to share. So you never know what's going to come out of when we're talking, but I'm sure we will be able to help people in one way or another. So thank you, Ivy, for having me.
With pleasure. And listeners, for those of you popping into LinkedIn, Renee and I have been business owners for a long time. So you might want to use this opportunity to ask her or myself any questions you have on building a credit card processing business, other businesses, and how to build a business with ethics and value, because Renee has that and you've done that. So share a little bit, in the introduction, I touched on very briefly, why you got into this business. But can you give us a little more background on that?
Yes. Well, being raised in a family business, I have worked with small business owners my entire life. I used to go on the road with my dad when he sold hair care and jewelry and pantyhose. So yeah, it's something I learned from being very young, how important these small businesses are. Number one, to the community, but to the families. And so my core value has always been, let's help the little guy. And 22 years ago, I had a girlfriend, single mom, start her own business. And I went, and I was helping her with her business plan, knew nothing about the credit card processing side. And she got involved with a big bank that was charging her astronomical amounts of money, but also got her in a lease for a credit card machine. So this poor gal who is living paycheck to paycheck to get her business off the ground was stuck in a lease. She was paying $150 a month for this credit card machine that cost $270.
Ouch.
And it was a 4-year lease that she
4 years.
Yes.
For $150 a month. So listeners, do the math. 4 years for $150 a month for a machine that was valued at $270.
$270.
Yeah. So that would have been paid in 2 months.
Oh,
with change.
Yes. But she didn't know any different. I didn't at the time. But so I worked to get her out of the lease, and it was impossible. And then the second thing that happened to her, this big bank had a minimum usage fee of $85. So I thought, she goes, no problem. I'm going to easily process that every month. What she didn't understand, it was the amount of fees taken out of your credit card transactions. And she was at $83. And I went, okay, cool. That she'll be charged $83 and then the extra $2. No, this big bank charged her $85 and the $83.
Ow.
So I just got mad. And so what I started doing, I went around and I interviewed 100 businesses about what they liked about their credit card processing, which I could count maybe 5 things. After 100 businesses, 5 things maybe people liked, but everybody was just fed up with them. So I just went back to my husband and I said, honey, this is going to be our next business. He goes, what? He goes, I go, we're going to start a credit card processing company. And he already he made surgical instruments. So he had a company, his own already. And he goes, how do you plan on doing that? And I literally showed him a spreadsheet of all the businesses I talked to and what they hated about their credit card processing companies. We contacted Visa, MasterCard, went through the interview process. And I mean, it took months and months to get registered and licensed with them. And then we started. And, the couple of the big things they hate is they get stuck in a contract. That was the other thing. For her to get out of this big bank contract, it would cost her $1,000. And people think they sign this contract and it gets you tied in where their fees will not go up. No, they raised her fees 3 times through that first year. And I was just getting angrier and angrier. So we have no contracts. We have no minimum usage fees because everybody has to start somewhere. Everybody deserves a break to start their business.
I want to share, because I want to go back in the day when I was in the printing industry for 20 some odd plus years. I never took credit cards. Okay. We were B2B. We were working with large corporations. It was invoice and get paid, and you got paid by check. Okay. And that was a long time ago, mind you. When I moved into opening up Slater Success, my philosophy was, I am no longer chasing money. Meaning, okay, for those business owners who can relate to accounts receivables at 30, 60, 90, and then the 90 plus day receivables. And, if you did any like big business work, if you did any government work, if you did things of, you have to be on your collections. So when I opened this quote unquote, but my vision was in the early days, this was a small business, right? It was a small business. It's going to be a simple entity, much smaller than my printing company. And I said, okay, I'll take credit cards because then I don't have to I don't have to be chasing my money, right? I don't want to chase money. I opened this company. I was, 45, 46 years old back in the day. And I was like, that's my game changer. It's my gift to myself. And in exchange for that, we'll pay and I'm going to use a word that is not necessarily a great word. We're going to pay the VIG, which is the exchange of not chasing money. But if I actually figured out how much time myself or my staff would spend chasing money, the credit card fees are well worth it. Until you start reading your bank statements monthly and you see how much money comes out.
Yeah. Well, and that's so a couple things you triggered for me there, because I tell people you need to take 3% because that's the average what your fee should be. And you need to put that into your cost of doing business. You have to take your rent. You have to take your electric bill, all of that to put into your cost of doing business. It is amazing to me how many companies just take it as a tax deduction at the end of the year. But you cannot run a business anymore without taking credit cards. So, and then the second thing, Ivy, that you brought up, and this was another thing that this big bank was doing to my friend. She was all B2B. She had all business to business. Well, being licensed and bonded with Visa, MasterCard, we know that there is special pricing for B2B. And this big company was not giving her B2B pricing either. So we just helped one client. They sell coffee beans. And they were with the same big bank. We saved them over 58% on their processing fees because we were able to give them B2B pricing. So this is what I like people to be aware of if they have a business. If you're doing a lot of B2B, and we also have programs where now invoices can be sent out. We just helped a company with their receivables in New Jersey on your East Coast. They had over 80,000 in receivables that they could not collect. And we put this automated invoicing program put together. Within 90 days, they were 100% collected. So there is stuff to be efficient with your business.
Right. And, one of the things that what I adore about talking to you, okay, and every time Renee, listeners and listeners, watchers, viewers popping in here today or scrolling through, listeners, just so you know, if you have any questions, make sure to put them in the chat. They'll come through to myself and I will share them out there. Also, if you're watching this on a recording and questions come up, please continue to post them, because Renee and I will be continuing to go into LinkedIn and answer and converse with you. We know not everybody can be on live at the same time. Here's one of the things, though. When Renee and I have had a few conversations, and every time we realize we have to jump off the phone because we just talk business. We talk women in business. We talk about some of the things that are going on in business, and a couple of things Renee just triggered for me. And this is, viewers, how our conversations go. Oh, you just made me think of this. Oh, you just made me think of this. One, we got to know our overhead. And our credit card fees are part of the overhead. And make sure, if you're not as a business leader looking at it, make sure your CFO, your bookkeepers, somebody is in this conversation with you, so you know about the money that your company is including in their overhead process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Vitally important. And the other thing is, and this is where probably one of my biggest things that I had no clue about. I had owned a business for close to 20 years, and I still didn't know. My husband took credit cards in his company that he was an owner for over that time. And when I went to take credit cards, I was like, I didn't know the questions to ask. Somebody said, oh, use this. We're doing well. You get the money in your bank account quickly. I'm like, oh, money in my bank account quickly. Check off my pain point. That's all you had to say to me. And I was not a naive new business owner, but my pain point was, I'm no longer going to chase money. The person who recommended the company I was using back at the early days was, you get money in your bank account quickly, check the box, signed on the dotted line, because it made sense. It checked my pain point. But what I didn't know was, what do I ask? I asked you, what credit cards do you take? I knew to ask that. I knew I wanted to take all the major credit cards. I asked that question. After that, for lack of a better word, I don't know. I shrugged my shoulders.
Yeah. Well, and Ivy, it's and this is where I understand how and why it got to be such a sleazy industry. And this is, so one of the questions, and I just ran into this last month, one of our account officers ran into it. So we don't do any contracts whatsoever. And so signed a new client, saved them a lot of money, but more importantly, we made them more efficient. So they went to cancel their previous processor, thinking no contract. Well, they had a termination fee. $800.
Ouch.
So one of the questions, do you have contracts? Do you have a cancellation fee? Or, there was another terminology that they used, and I'll think of it in a second. But these are the questions you do need to ask. The other thing is, how often do you do a review? We review every one of our merchants every single year. And a big one, if you do a lot of B2B, do you have B2B pricing? And if they look like they have no clue what you're talking about, you better move on, because they don't. There is a certain system and a certain way to program that recognizes B2B cards. And most companies won't even offer it, because they make a ton of money on those B2B cards, because they get the pricing, and then what they actually charge you, they get the difference. And again, we are so passionate about passing all of these savings on to the business. Every penny counts for these small businesses. So those are a few of the questions. I am happy to set up an appointment with people if they have certain questions to watch out for. The other huge complaint is when I have an issue, I can't get a hold of anybody. So
wait, let's weigh in here for a second. Okay. Because I'm going to say I'm of a certain age. Renee might not be of my age. I'll give you a little credit here. Okay. Yet there's nothing more frustrating to me than companies who you go to call them. Okay, and the millennials and the younger generations, you guys have this technology. You can, on here, go and ask your questions really rapidly. But there's a ton of us who don't, who I want to talk to a person. I don't want to type at a person, and wait for that automated response. And I was like, I know I'm talking to a computer. I really want to talk to a person. Mm-hmm. I did this on the airline recently. I'm like, I'm waiting on hold, and they're like hours to call me back. And then they're like, but you can chat. I said, great. Here's my issue. Here's my question. It's a quick question. Can I do this? And then you wait and you wait and you wait. So I think one of the things that my rant is on today a little bit is customer service. Mm-hmm. Because customer service can make or break organizations.
Mm-hmm. And not only make or break like our personal companies, but it also makes and breaks every individual business because they do not have time to sit on hold for an hour. I'm super passionate about this one, Ivy, because that was one of the top complaints of all those businesses I interviewed. So I had more fun putting together the whole structure of our company. So this is how it is out there with our competition. They have a sales team that goes out, knocks on doors, telemarkets, does all of that. They have quotas that they have to meet every single week.
That's what sales is very often in a lot of big companies.
And that's why they go in and lie about the rates. They lie about everything that they can do because they're trying to keep their job. To me, it just made common sense when I finally figured that one out. So we actually have no quotas on our salespeople. They can work when they want, but they get paid commissions. So it's up to them how hard they want to work. We have no quotas, no territories. So that was one thing that eliminated oh my gosh, I have to keep my job. Secondly, their first point of contact is their account officer. They have the cell phone of their account officer. We have account officers. We've been around 22 years. We have people that have been with us 16 years, 17 years. So our salespeople don't leave. So number one, you have that. And I don't know if I should say this, but every single person has access to my personal extension. So if they are having a problem. So then we even took it one step further because this is another pet peeve of mine. You finally get into the queue and then they keep passing you around because you don't have the right person. Hold on, let me get that person. And usually I'm
going to raise my hand. I've been on that call.
And in life, the fourth transfer, they disconnect you and you got to start over.
So no, customer service is key, but and in all organizations and, listeners, viewers, a couple of the points what Renee is talking about today are not just about credit card processing. We're talking about small business. We're talking about business in general. We're talking because the more we all rally around and gain knowledge on what we need to know, the more powerful as combined entities of small business we become. Yeah. So I want to lead here for a second and say, in sharing what I share of leaders of small business, Renee, you took this a step further.
Yes.
And that's what initiated my one-on-one conversation with you. So viewers, Renee and I were connected through somebody who's in one of my networking groups. Great guy, Mick. And if you're out there, join us and say hello. Mick introduced us because when I had my one-on-one conversation with Mick, networker to networker, he goes, Ivy, I hear the work you're doing. You need to meet another great woman leader. I want you to meet Renee, who owns the company I work for. I'm like, Mick, but aren't you going to try to sell me? He's like, no, I know. Because you girls have to meet. So we did, and our conversations just keep escalating. And one of the things that really had me lean in talking to you is when you started sharing with me the Every Swipe Benefits charity, because there's people who talk about a concept and people who follow through on a concept. So share a little bit with our viewers about Every Swipe Benefits Charity. What drove you to start that and where it is now?
Well, I actually am going to start with where it is now because I get very excited about it. I've always given my 10%, the obligatory 10% that we're supposed to give. So, last month, $411,000 we've given away in the last 5 years. So we get very excited about that. But what is it all about? It came about, we lost our house in one of the many wildfires out in San Diego in 2007. And I'll tell you, it's amazing what happens, not only to your heart, but to your mind, your whole being, when you literally lose everything. And we actually were out of town, so we saw it on Good Morning America that our house was gone, cars and everything. Only time I've taken a limo to the airport. Of course, left my car behind and it burned. So it was interesting. But we formed a group called Fired Up Sisters. There are 1,100 homes that burned. So, and most out of the 1,100 homes, 98% of us were underinsured. So we turned into a buying group, started as a support group, ended up into a buying group. But what I did, I would go to businesses and like a lighting company, or Home Depot did it for us. And I'd say, if you close down at night, have an open house, I will bring my 600 friends. My closest friends, my Fired Up Sisters, will buy from you. But these were the two stipulations. They had to give a 10% discount. But second, they had to give 10% back of every single transaction back to the Fired Up Sisters.
Ah.
And every single business.
Nice caveat there.
And that's how we raised money for these people that had no insurance, and we were able to help build houses. But we ended up with a 5,600 square foot warehouse where Tempur-Pedic Mattress donated 3 semi-truckloads of stuff, and Home Goods donated stuff. But bottom line, what ended up happening when I came back to work finally 5 years later, I told my husband, I said, we have this vehicle that's making money. Why can't we take a portion of every transaction in every single merchant nationwide and donate it back to charity? And he looked at me like, you want to do what again? Because he wasn't thrilled when I started the credit card company.
Viewers, let's just make a point here. So Mr. VanHeel, God bless him, right? He was like, yeah, Renee, go do, leave me alone. Yeah, right. Don't talk to me. And then it's like, okay, so now you're making money and you want to give it away. Is this what I'm hearing correctly?
That is exactly what he said. He goes, okay, so we've just lost everything. We're severely underinsured and don't even have enough money to rebuild, and you want to give money away. It's like, yeah, we got to. It's going to be cool. And it has been a blessing. Each charity we bring on board, they have to be vetted. 80 cents on the dollar has to go to the cause, or they will not be part of the program. And so Every Swipe Benefits Charity is an actual 501c3. And then what happens is every single one of our merchants gets to pick from the list of charities to where they want their portion of every transaction to go. So it's very simple. I love it. It's fun giving money away. But, your heart does change once you lose everything, because you find out you don't need everything. It's much more fun to give than it is to have an extra house somewhere or an extra car. I love driving my 20-year-old Mercedes. It's one, as long as it keeps working. It's wonderful.
So you've given away a lot of money.
Yeah. And my goal is to give $1 million a year away. So, and the only way to do that is to find more businesses that will use our services, that want good customer service, good rates, the whole thing. But more so, the other thing that we implemented, and I just met with the charity here in Phoenix today, and we actually have put together a fundraising program that these charities can use at Pay It Forward processing to raise monthly income for their charity. So that's a whole nother aspect that we put together, because charities, there's not a lot of free flowing cash through COVID. A lot of them took at least a 35% hit.
Yep.
Yeah. So we've got 3 different ways that we teach charities how to do their own, raising their own funds. But with us, it's every single month because the businesses continue to use that. So it's not like doing a golf tournament where you have to do them once a year with fingers crossed, hoping it's gonna turn out well. I have put on so many golf tournaments, I can't even count them anymore.
So Tara's coming through with a question. She's saying, I love your passion, Renee. When you get that next best idea, what is your strategy to figure out if it's just a good idea or one you can actually execute?
That's a really good question. There are certain things that I look for in a business. Number one, that recurring income is very, very important to me. My husband made surgical instruments, one of a kind, very, very gifted. Very few people can do what he does, but he realized when he wasn't working, he wasn't making money. So I'm very fortunate he figured that out because he sold the company about 8 years ago and is now full-time with us. So super happy. He literally is the brains behind everything. But you have to figure out, what are you going to look for? Why do you want to do it? And you do have to have a plan. So this is my next project that I'm working on, and I'm going to tell you why. We just bought a 10-acre ranch in Arizona, very old ranch, but I'm turning it into a retreat center for women recovering from cancer. But how can I sustain it? Well, we are putting little tiny homes on it. So it's going to be Airbnb. Well, guess what? That's recurring income. That's it. But I also am a very big proponent of a business plan and a marketing plan. And it has to be a 3-year, so you actually can see the numbers out 3 years if it is viable or not. Mm-hmm. So you can't go on a whim.
No, you can't build a business on a whim. And viewers, another reason Renee and I click so well is I'm a firm believer in a plan, a business plan, a marketing plan, a sales plan, and a financial plan. And one of the early things Renee said, that for those of you who didn't pick up on it, I'm a huge, huge proponent, is you saw a problem. You identified a problem, and then you did a market research. When Renee reflected on those 100 companies, those 100 small businesses she spoke to, interviewed, met with, had conversations with, identified the similarities and pain points, and knew she can now understand the problem she saw and work a way to solve it, then there is a potential of a substantial business model. Mm-hmm. So I think it is important that we actually do the market research out there.
Yeah. And, I didn't know how to use an Excel spreadsheet when I started. So my husband had to teach me. But you guys, you need to document all your market research too. Yeah. And you can't, and this is the other thing, you cannot just write down what you want to hear. You have to write everything down because there's no business that doesn't have the challenges. And then it's like, okay, well, this is going to be a challenge. So what am I going to do to get around that challenge, to solve that challenge? So another thing we're going to use our retreat center for is small corporate retreats. Why? Because I've talked to a lot of my clients and they need a place for about 10 to 15 people yearly to do their business planning. And it costs a fortune in the hotels. So I heard a pain and I'm going, well, all we have to do is put a community center in there, and one of the barns easily can be turned into a community center. So, but you have to listen and do not be afraid to talk to people. I went up to businesses that I didn't know, and I just said, I am doing some market research because I want to start this company, but I really would like your feedback on your pains, and I want your successes too. But do not hesitate to talk to people about it.
I think that's very valid. And I'll share from my perspective when I was opening Slater Success and I was doing my market research in 2007, and I was talking to people, and this was the time, viewers, that coaching was not known. It was an unknown business model. And I was talking to people. One of my questions was, can you actually make a living, or is this a hobby entity? I have 2 kids, 2-income family. Like, what are we looking at? and I spoke to attorneys, I spoke to other people, other consultants. I spoke to people who were in the television sphere because I knew them. I spoke to people who were successful and people who were unsuccessful, because you have to look at all sides of the coin.
Well, and Ivy, again, you triggered something there. Are you going to treat it as a business or a hobby?
Yeah.
And I really want to address the women out there, because I have seen this time and time again. I'm 40 plus years experience in business, you guys, so I see a lot. But women have a tendency to start a business and treat it as a hobby. Why? Because we were kind of raised that way, in the sense that I did not have a lot of strong role models in business in my life. So, and I see it time and time again, just like you said, Ivy, that people will get started and it's a hobby. Well, I always treat every business I started, I treated like I invested $100 million into it. If you invest $100 million into it, guess what? You now have a business. Doesn't matter if you only had to put 10,000 into it. Treat it like a $100 million company. And it is amazing. Just your mindset changes. And this is the other thing I realized in business growing up, that once you hit that next threshold of amount of money you make, you do have a mindset change.
Yes.
And you take it more serious. And so I just want to encourage you, if you really want to make this work, just pretend you just invested $100 million. Who would you want as your CEO? And if you're not that person yet, go out and find coaching. I learned business by reading a book. My dad died when I was 18 and left me a business. So I didn't get to go to college. There's 3 authors that I am a huge proponent of, is Ken Blanchard, John Maxwell, and Stephen Covey. That they are the 3 that taught me business. Yeah. Oh, amongst others too.
There's many other. There's a ton of great books out there, and the viewers that are watching today or coming back and watching after the live ends, encourage you to share with us the book that made an impression on you.
Yeah.
What was that book that made that impression on you?
Yeah.
There's been so many for me. And, today with TED Talks and YouTube and books and audiobooks and white papers and LinkedIn live shows and podcasts, there are so many ways to educate yourself on business. You actually just have that choice. Do you want to be educated, or do you want to just stay in the gray zone?
So Ivy, that's a perfect example of what you want to do is figure out, where am I lacking? Okay, I had a heck of a time learning about how to write my vision. Oh my gosh. So I went for a whole weekend. I had 3 different books from 3 different people. And I said, I'm not leaving this hotel until I have my vision down. I don't know why it was so difficult, but there were 3, and I just Googled it, and I bought 3 different books. So I encourage you, if there's something you're struggling with, figure it out, write it down, and go teach yourself, or find an amazing coach that can maybe cut down a ton of work. I just wasn't that smart to find a good coach. I had to learn it on my own. So not always the best. So I don't recommend that to everybody.
Well, Renee, before we jump off today, what is one tip you would actually leave our viewers with, based on our conversation in building Pay It Forward processing and Every Swipe Benefits charity?
I think there's so many, Ivy, but we touched on it earlier. You have to have a good sphere of people around you. If owning a business it's not always easy. It's not always simple, but I'll tell you, number one, you can never quit on a bad day. That you cannot do, but find a good group of other business owners that can encourage you along the way, because you need that. You cannot do this on your own. I tried. I'm a very independent person. When my house burned down in the fires, the most amazing thing I learned was how to ask for help. Mm-hmm. It's okay to have help. It's okay to let people help you. So that, I can't thank you enough.
And Renee, how can our listeners, obviously check out Renee VanHeel on LinkedIn, and you want to share your website so they can check you out there as well?
Yeah, the Every Swipe Benefits charity is esbcharity.org. And then Pay It Forward Processing is pfprocessing.com.
And viewers, I encourage you to, as you've given today a listen, a watch, write down any questions you have for Renee as well myself, as well as what I say at the end of every episode of anything I do. Take note of what your takeaways were from listening and what you're going to implement based on showing up. It's not just about listening and viewing. It's about what you're going to do about it that will help you grow and help your organizations grow. Renee, thank you for joining me here today.
You are so welcome. I had so much fun. It's a lot of fun sharing. Anything I can help with, I am there for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And listeners, next week I'm interviewing Larry Kaufman. Larry Kaufman, he is an incredibly brilliant man. Stay tuned next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Pacific, and you guys figure out those time zones in between. Until now and then, I look forward to seeing and hearing your comments below. Thanks for joining us.